nothing was overlooked against Michigan. Ryan Day had a plan for everything, including potential communication breakdown.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Hump Day edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. During today's show, we will discuss the potential impact C.J. Hicks will have if he plays in the postseason, as well as why Ryan Day has the right mindset to quickly turn the page to Indiana. But first, one thing we know about football is that communication and technology is big, especially in college football when coach to player communication is a new thing in the sport, as well as using tablets on the sideline. While those two things are new to the sport, we also know there might be a time where those things aren't able to happen. And the unfortunate happened against Michigan, where in the second half, there was a portion of that part of the game where coach-to-player communication was cut off, and even coach-to-coach communication was cut off because nothing was happening on that side of the field where the Buckeyes were having issues with their headsets. And while they were having issues with their headsets, it was something that Ryan Day had already prepared for. He was a forward-thinking coach. He has showed that a lot this season. And while he has been forward-thinking, he put a plan in place during the week. So if this actually happened where the headsets didn't work properly, there was a way for Ohio State to keep moving and to keep control of the game. And that's exactly what happened. And I mentioned forward thinking on purpose because that's one of the biggest things about Ryan Day this season is he is thinking forward. How can the game against Texas help Ohio State down the road? And how can games against lesser opponents help Ohio State down the road? And when guys were hurt and when they were playing teams that were lesser opponents than them and they were 30-point favorites, the Buckeyes and with Ryan Day's leadership consistently found ways to help the team prepare for the future. A game in the Big Ten title, a game in the CFP. Why? Because Ryan Day is forward thinking. And I got to give hats off to Ryan Day because I hear a lot about how in the NFL specifically, communication can either get cut off or you can get a communication and signal inside your headset, which would be very, very frustrating. If I'm on the field in the NFL and it's 3rd and 5 and it's 2 minutes left of the game, the next thing you know, I hear a semi talking to one of his buddies, semi truck driver talking to one of his buddies. I would get really, really frustrated and try to figure out what is going on. Well, sometimes signals get crossed and that stuff happens. You don't want it to happen, but it happens. Well, it happened against Michigan. Julian Sand knew what he was supposed to do. Ryan Day started calling plays. They were on the people on the sidelines trying to figure out what was going on. There was a Michigan staffer on the sideline, very close to the Buckeyes, like 40, 50-yard line. He was really deep back there. And now I don't know in Michigan Stadium if there is a line behind the bench where people can walk back and forth. I don't know. But it seemed odd to me that there was someone back at that part of the sidelines. But like I said, I don't know the line and if there is a part where media and those that have sideline access are able to roam back and forth behind the away bench. So I don't know all of that. I do know that Ryan Day was smart. Ryan Day was a wizard, you may want to call him that, because even some of his assistants, he didn't say any names in his presser on Tuesday, but some of his assistants kind of gave him some looks and were like, "Are you sure? Are you sure this is something we need to work on?" Well, that may have been Ryan Day's thought that he had in the NFL, having a backup plan if this goes wrong, but also knowing you're going to your rival's home. And one thing I know when I was growing up, I heard a lot about the Lakers and Celtics in the 80s and how the Celtics away locker room didn't have AC. You know, the Lakers are coming to town for the NBA Finals. And think about you're going to the NBA Finals, you're the away team, it's in June. It's stupid hot. You're running back and forth, you're sweating, You go in the locker room at halftime, think you're going to cool off, get some fluids in you, and go back out there in the second half. No, no, you're sweating even more. Like, man, this ain't right. Why? Well, sometimes you try to do things in your visitors' locker room to throw them off. I've heard of a college football locker room. I don't know which one, but the walls are painted pink. Why? To throw off the mentals. Now, a color on a wall is not as big as having no AC in the visitors' locker room. However, there are certain things you can do to throw off the mentals of your opponent, and if you can do that, so be it. Now, I'm not saying that Michigan did it on purpose. I have no idea. But if they did, I wouldn't be shocked. And it's not because of the whole Connor Stallions sign stealing thing. It's literally something that, well, some teams in heated rivalries, they will do things that are not thought of very often to get an upper hand. Now, I don't know the Big Ten's rule as far as if one team doesn't have communication in their headsets, does that mean the team that currently has communication needs to stop theirs until the other team gets theirs back working, back up and running? I don't know that rule. That's a Big Ten rule. It would be a conference by conference rule. I don't know that rule. But Ryan Day's going to be looking into that. I guarantee if he hasn't, someone on his staff, his right-hand man, may have looked into it to figure out what the proper rule is. Because you don't want to go into the Big Ten championship game this weekend and have it happen again. Now, you're in an NFL stadium, and so maybe it works a little bit different, but you're using your same headsets. It's one thing weird about college football is that people use their own headsets. You have your own sponsor on your headset. It's not uniform for the conference or uniform for every team. No. College football is it's a great collective sport, but there's a lot of individuality there in the sport. And with the headsets, you have that. Some are sponsored by JLab, some are sponsored by fill in the blank Motorola, a company. It doesn't really matter. So I don't know that. But Ryan Day, once again, had a plan for something that's not really thought about very often. And I think he's going to have more plans this weekend. Let's say it happens again, but you want to go tempo. What's the plan? Do you want to go back and put the signs up? Maybe. I don't know. But you got to figure out what you're going to do. Hats off to Ryan Day. Thinking outside the box, being a forward-thinking coach, trying to get ahead of the game and think about what may happen in enemy territory, literal enemy territory, to make sure that if it happens, we got a plan in place. Ryan Day's had a plan in place all season for various things. If things don't go right at right guard, there's a plan in place to rotate. However, with the way Tegra played last week, I don't know if Ryan Day is planning on rotating against Indiana this weekend. I have no idea. In the biggest game of the year, Tegra played his best game of the year, and you would want to think, once again, the game this weekend, that it's a hardware game. You're playing for a trophy. Maybe when the stakes are the highest are when Tegra plays his best. Because the Buckeyes, I think, played 73 snaps. I believe they played 73 snaps. I don't know Tegra's snap count off the top of my head. I don't. But you think about how many snaps they played, and he probably played all of them, and that was his best game of the year. Woo. That brings confidence for Ohio State's offensive line and the rest of the players up front, especially Tegra, because if he's playing like that, that means the other four guys on the offensive line are raising their level of play, which is perfect for this time of year, as Ohio State is not only trying to win a Big Ten title, they're also attacking a national championship in 2025. One thing Buckeyes are doing while attacking a natty is quickly turning to the page to their next opponent. That's exactly what Ohio State has already done. They're not living in the moment in the emotion of beating Michigan. They have turned the page to Indiana to prepare for the Big Ten championship game. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. One thing we know about Ohio State is that they have a coach that has the right mindset, is pushing the right buttons, and is ready for the task. And all season long, Ohio State has been building towards this moment. Not only getting a pair of gold pants and beating Michigan, that was a lot of fun to watch, but also for a chance to win another Big Ten title. And the Buckeyes are a few days away from that. And it would be very easy to live in the moment and to remain on cloud nine after beating Michigan in their house for the first time since 2019 to snap a four-game skid against a team up north. It would be so easy and almost comforting to just, man, we in a good spot. Man, we just good, man. We 12 and 0, number one team in the land. All these polls love us. The national media is starting to give us more attention. The local media has been hyping us up all year. Man, we are in a really good spot. But Ryan Day is not comfortable with that. And I'm with Ryan Day. You should not sit comfortable where you are while you are just a few days away from winning or playing for a chance to win a conference championship. And contrary to what a lot of people may think around the country, this game still matters to Ohio State. 100% it still matters. Not only does Ohio State not have many guys on the team, any guys on the team that had a pair of gold pants before last week, they don't have a guy that's been to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. The only guys that have been to Indianapolis for representing Ohio State have been guys that have been there for the Big Ten media days. That's it. They have not been there for a Big Ten championship game. And that's weird to think about. But while that's weird to think about, you have to appreciate Ryan Day's ability to turn the page, not stay where you are, and realize you're on to Indiana. That's literally the words that came out of his mouth. I'm going to read a quote here in a second about Ohio State moving past the win over Michigan. While it's difficult to do, you have to do it. Quote, it's on to Indiana. This is going to be an electric atmosphere. It's a great opponent. This is a very important game for us. We got to play our best. That game is behind us, end quote. And not only is it behind the players, it's behind the coach. Now, there will be time in the offseason to think about Michigan and trying to do the same thing next year. Like, it's an offseason conversation. But right now, all of the focus needs to be towards Indiana, what they do well, and Ohio State focusing on them doing what they need to do. You have to be able to do what it takes to beat Indiana. If you got to pass the ball, pass it. If you got to run the ball, run it. You have to be able to look at Indiana, find out what they do, find out their weaknesses, and then find ways to attack said weaknesses. If you need to make them one-dimensional on offense, do it. If you need to test their DBs a little bit more, do it. Fernando Mendoza, as great as he has been this year, he almost threw 3 or 4 interceptions against Purdue last week. Now, the final score is going to be 56-3. So that's a really, really lopsided score. And I actually watched early in the game when Purdue scored their only field goal. And while you would think they should have gone for it on fourth down, you need the points. I understand that you're overmatched, and if you don't get the points, then you could have gotten shut out. And in that moment, I get it, man. Take the points, you're fine. But there are going to be moments where Ohio State's defense can take advantage of some abnormal Fernando Mendoza errors and decisions. Well, you have to do what is needed. And while you know what you have to do to win the game, or you're working to put the game plan into perfection, if you're still thinking about Michigan, you're not focused on what's next. And it would be a major problem for Ohio State if Sayan and Smith and Tate and Pierce and Reese and the Styles boys, if they were all focused on what happened the week before, that would be a big problem because Michigan's not going to be there playing on the field. You may get shown more. Some of the players, they come over to watch the game just to be fans, but they're not playing. They're not playing in this thing at all. stay focused on the task. And as Ryan Day has done all year, which is focus on just finding a way to win, do that once again. Because if you stick to the formula that got you here, you're going to be lifting up the trophy at the end of the day. I know that's a weird statement to make, but to some that are flying in Locked On Buckeyes this week because, well, it's a Big Ten title game. There are only two Big Ten teams playing, and you want to get the Buckeye perspective. And it may seem like there's a little ego coming out of me. No, it's not at all. Do what is needed to win the game. You play to win the game, correct? So straight. That's a great Herm Edwards line that came from a presser. He said it with a lot more passion than the way that I said it on this show. But the sentiment is the same. You play to win the game. Now, how you win is up to you. What you do to secure that W, that's something that you can work on right now. But find a way to win. Indiana believes in themselves. Indiana has not won a Big Ten title since '67, I believe, and it was a split title. And the one before that they won, I think it was like 20 or 30 years prior. I don't know the exact year for the second, but I know it's been a while. They have not won. They have not been good. They have not been successful in a really long time. Last year was the best year in school history. This year is even better. Even better. Undefeated regular season. Number 2 team in the land in multiple polls, including the ones that matter. That's great for them. You know what's also great? Where Ohio State currently is. And like I said earlier, there are going to be people that keep trying to downplay this game and say, this doesn't mean anything to Ohio State. This means everything to Indiana. Trust me when I tell you that this game means something to those players inside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It means something to the coaches. It means something to every person that's a part of Ohio State's football program. Those that say it doesn't matter, I think are missing the mark. Those that call it an exhibition game, they're definitely missing the mark. This game still matters. And while the game still matters, you must keep your mind right. And while Ryan Day may try to throw a curveball at you, say, oh, no. We got to prepare for this and this and this. You're thinking, why we got to prepare for this, and this when these things don't normally happen? Because you have to prepare for the abnormal to happen in these kinds of games. You have to, 100%. I'm here for it. If you can't tell, I'm already fired up for this game. It is a nightcap. They have 4 Group of 5 conference championship games on Friday. They have one on Saturday. I believe the MAC championship is on Saturday. Then you have all 4 of the Power Conference championship games on Saturday as well. At 12, it's the Big 12 title. 4 is the SEC. 8 p.m. Eastern, the Big 10 is on Fox. The ACC is on, I believe, ABC. And that's your college football slate. The 4 o'clock window is the only window that doesn't have another game overlapping with it. The other 2 windows do. If you know anything about Ohio State, plus the ACC title game's a little bit weird, would you rather watch Indiana and Ohio State battle in the Big Ten title or Virginia and Duke in the ACC title? I think I know what you're going to pick, which is another reason why Ryan Day and these players are trying to prove everybody wrong once again. They're the number 1 team in the land, and if you watch these shows or listen to podcasts or read articles, you would think they weren't the number 1 team in the land. They have not dominated everybody that they played, and they have not held teams to the fewest point total overall. They've allowed the fewest points since 1975 through 12 games. That's going back to a year where Florida was a team that held that mark, and Florida was 9-3 in that year. So as great as Florida's defense was in 75, they were 9-3. Ohio State's great defense is accompanied by a great offense, and this is where we are right now. Ohio State has turned the page to Indiana, which means that the Buckeyes might get a certain player from the great state of Ohio. That's where he played his high school football. It's where he is from. He's a Buckeye in his 4th year. He's redshirting this year, but he has an opportunity to play in the postseason. His name is CJ Hicks, and if he plays, he might provide a little spark while he's on the field. Thank you all for tapping and Locked On Buckeyes. I'm making this show your first listen of the day, and for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. When it was announced that CJ Hicks would be redshirting this year, I didn't think about the possibility of him playing in the postseason because that's a rule that seems a little weird to me. But I don't make the rules. The rules makers do, and the conferences allow them to put those rules in place, and they don't really push back. And so that's how we get where we are. Well, CJ Hicks played in the first 4 games of the year. Then it was announced that the plan was to redshirt him. Of course, if they needed him to play to cover for somebody that was hurt, he was going to play, and the redshirt would go out the window. But for the long term career of CJ Hicks post college football, it was best for him to redshirt this year, and I'm glad he's redshirting. But while he's redshirting this year, the rule allows you, if you're redshirting in a particular year, to be eligible to play in the postseason, which is great. The issue is he hasn't played in over 2 months. So if you haven't played in that long, maybe less than that, but about a little bit, about 2 months. If it's been that long, do you think Ryan Day wants to put that kind of player on the field? I think there's a place for him to go and play. He's been practicing. He's in shape. He's not like he's losing weight or not mentally and physically prepared for battle. He's definitely prepared. But Ryan Day knows you get a guy like this that has fresh legs. You put him on certain special teams units, allow him to allow another player to get some rest, and then you see where everything goes. And if it doesn't work out right, you can put the other player back on the field. Hicks goes to the bench. You're not hurting his red shirt. You're seeing what he can do when he hasn't played in a while. And you let everything else fall where it needs to fall. I think CJ Hicks is going to be a great addition to a special teams unit or 2 or 3. It just depends on if Ohio State feels like they need him. Because if you don't feel like you need him, don't play him. Is he athletic? Yes. Is he best off the edge? Yes. Is that something where you can put him on the edge and then Caden Curry in the middle? Absolutely. That's one thing that you really hadn't seen very often, very much, is Caden Curry in the middle. But if you think back to the Texas game where he was a big reason why late in the game Arch Manning rolled out, I believe, to his left, CJ Hicks ended up coming off the edge untouched, and bam, his pressure on the quarterback forced a bad decision, a bad throw. It helped Ohio State secure the win. I hadn't thought about that play in a very long time, but that's what I thought about. Think about Hicks playing off the edge in an obvious passing situation, and trust me, that's the kind of guy you want to come off the edge in an obvious passing situation. He's hungry. Not only is he crazy talented, he is hungry. He is eager to get back on the field, chomping at the bit to go out there and hunt a quarterback. That's what he is. He's a quarterback hunter. And when you're a quarterback hunter, you want to make sure you're always on the field and you're ready to hunt them QBs. And while he's trying to make sure he's hunting them QBs, he has to make sure his body is prepared, his mind is prepared, that when he gets on the field for 2 or 3 snaps that he is not winded and he needs to come off the field. No. I believe there's a place for Hicks to play. But you got to be tricky. Is he needed? No. That's the one thing I believe right now. He is not needed. You don't need CJ Hicks to win a national championship. Not with this team. No. Now, if there was no redshirt rule that the way that it currently is, and he wasn't able to, it was either you play no games or you play 4. If it was the old rules and you couldn't play at all, if you were trying to redshirt, he probably would have played. And what we saw against Texas probably would have been developed into a bigger piece of the pie once you got into baked in play, the heart of baked in play. But you don't need him. I think it's one of the comforting things about this whole situation. Hicks might provide a spark. Hicks might be able to be a guy that is a major boost, even mentally and morale on the field. But I don't think it's needed. If it were needed, Ohio State wouldn't be number 1 in the country. They would not be having a shot to win a Big Ten title. There'd be a lot more questions surrounding this team. But you don't have those questions surrounding the team. If Hicks plays, I believe it would have been strategically thought out. There's a plan for him to play. There might even be a snap restriction that allows him to play a certain amount of snaps and then the rest is done. Why? Because it's been so long since he's played football. One thing when I realized last week about Tate and Smith, I didn't really factor into, well, how hurt were they? Well, I mean, I thought about how hurt they were, but Tate missed 3 games. Jeremiah's missed, I think, a game and a half. I don't know for sure. I think it was Rutgers he missed. Week before that, I think, was UCLA. Jeremiah Smith played. Carnell Tate didn't. So, yeah, Tate missed 3 games. Smith missed a game and a half where he came out. He was on a pitch count. He came out early against UCLA. And the Buckeyes are fine. Well, partly because of who they were playing. But the Buckeyes' pass rush hasn't been the strongest at all, honestly. I think that you would want more sacks. You would want more pressure on the quarterback. And I think that's where Hicks would excel. Now, for this game specifically, if in their preparation they realize there is a tackle or a tight end or a running back that's a little bit weaker in pass pro and Hicks can provide the versatility up front that they need to make sure they exploit that hole, put him in. Put him in, put him in, put him in. It is that simple. Sometimes we watch football and we think about how difficult football is for a coach to coach, but sometimes football is actually simple as well. I watch football. We watch football all the time. And when I watch the Indianapolis Colts play football, I'm getting frustrated because Shane Steichen's the offensive play caller and the head coach. And sometimes I think he's getting pulled in too many different ways as he's the head coach of the team, and the offense is suffering. And too many times, Jonathan Taylor does not get the ball when he needs to get it. Tyler Warren does not have enough catches and targets, and it's very, very frustrating because even this past week, the Colts lost to the Texans. They should have won that game. Week before, the Colts lost to the Chiefs. They should have won that game. What was the big problem in those games? Offensive play calling, which goes to Shane Steichen, who's the head coach, who should take a page out of Ryan Day's book, give the play calling duty to an OC you trust. Ryan Day did that over the past couple of years, and you saw how things went for Ohio State. No, the Colts don't have a superior roster over everybody else in the NFL. I'm not going that far, but one thing I am saying is that one thing I'm saying about the Colts that's similar to Ohio State, you got to just put the guys in the right position to be successful and push the right buttons. Get a coach that ends up messing up, getting in his own way, not putting the right players in the right spots to be successful. And Ohio State could put Hicks on the field to be successful over and over and over again. I firmly think Hicks could be a big piece of this defense, or a spark. I won't say a big piece. I will say a spark. If he shows flashes, put him out there. Another massive benefit, Ohio State's probably going to have a first-round bye. I think they're going to beat Indiana. So in my guess, they're going to have a first-round bye. So let's say you get Hicks playing this weekend, limited snap count, and then your next game isn't until New Year's Day to be at the Rose Bowl. You get a month, an absolute month, to get him up to speed some more after getting some playing time on the field. That would be perfect. That would be perfect. He adds a wrinkle to this defense that can make him better down the stretch. You know another benefit? You only got a small little bit of tape on CJ Hicks with this 4 games. It was on limited snaps. Let's say that he plays 10 to 15 snaps a game off the edge. And people are like, well, what's the game plan for him? What's the blueprint? Well, you don't really have one because the snaps that he played, they weren't really significant. They were beneficial at times, but you don't have a large enough sample size to put a good game plan together, which plays into Ohio State's game plan. Y'all, this is fun. I love football. Looking forward to this game this weekend. Thank you for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making the show your first listen of the day. You can follow me on any social media platform or jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes on a hump day. We'll see you next time.